Nigeria is not ripe for tax reforms. B, this is the position of average northern politicians and the political class who has become beneficiaries of this flawed system, impoverishing the entire region and population of the northern people for decades without doing anything to alleviate the sufferings of the people. Now they are clamoring, fighting against the reforms in Tinubu's administration that you cannot be busy doing other things different that does not contribute to the development and growth of your own region and the country at large, while you cash out on monthly basis much money than you could even generate. It's just like hoping on hope, being parasitic in their nature. I was shocked if the entire northern politicians and northern political elites could summon such courage and energy expended in opposing this tax reform bills to go back and re-strategize how they should ensure the development of the entire northern population and the northern part of the country. If they have given such energy, attention, commitment to the development of the North, by now, North would have been one of the most developed regions of this country. But unfortunately, the North want to keep the entire northern Nigeria in dark, dragging the entire South into this mess. Because you cannot say that Nigeria, when it comes to issues of importance, the North will always try to make case for the North, the reason why such should not be adopted at this time. How can a House of Representative or a lawmaker from the North be arguing this position that the North Nigeria is not right for tax reforms? When will Nigeria be right? Is Nigeria a baby? At 60 plus, you are still saying that Nigeria is not right for development. Nigeria is not right to move forward. Nigeria is not right. Only being stuck in the wheel of motionless and despair, where the majority of the poverty index are from the north. You are not thinking, how do we move the northern part of this country that have enjoyed the best privileges uh, available within the country? Most of the UN NGOs, UN projects are being cited in the north. World Bank projects are being cited in the north, to the extent that even an average northerner, especially those within the academic cycle, is being encouraged to study anywhere in the world free of charge, all expense paid. You see, whether you want to study your master's, you want to run for your PhD, you are being granted that waiver. In any part of the world you want to carry out your research. But such privileges were not extended to the southern people. You can see the imbalance, injustice in the system. And yet, that is not enough when you consider most of the malaria drugs and the medical outreach organized by the Health and other international world is being focused in the north. The palliative, international palliatives and whatever is being pushed down to the Nigerian state is being focused in the north. So if they are enjoying all these privileges and unfortunately decided to keep themselves and their own people in the state of quagmire, in the state of retrogression, who should they blame? Every time issues of importance is being raised that will engender good governance and equitability within the system or distribution of the post-Commonwealth, They will come up with this deceptive propaganda that it is not ripe. It is Nigeria is not ripe for that. When will Nigeria be ripe? At 60 years plus, most of the countries that had the same independence with Nigeria almost at the same time have left Nigeria and eventually they are moving forward. Citing, look at Malaysia, citing India, and many other nations who are doing exceedingly well today. Unfortunately, Nigeria be stuck in the wheel of motionless and despair. And whenever issues of importance, critical issues of importance are being raised, attention is given, the North will come up to oppose it because it does not favor them. And since it does not favor them, that will not hold. They will fight it to the letter to silence such promulgations or bills intended to encourage ingenuity, encourage industrialization, encourage productivity. So the North is not ready, it's not ripe. Nigeria is not ripe for tax reforms and equitable distribution of the common resources where each locality controls, of course, whatever that comes out from their region by virtue of encouraging productivity and creating enabling environment. Because if you don't have relative peace to world investors to attract investment, or you push people away from your own region, just as the most part of the northern states have been deserted. Look at the activities of Boko Haram at Rampage. People have been adopted, killed, and all that. Even those who are supporting whatever is going in the north, who are living in denial, unfortunately, are becoming victim of this cruelty against humanity. It was learned that one medical doctor who is studying in Egypt eventually during Buhari's time was supporting Buhari that whatever Buhari did is okay. It doesn't matter to anyone who think otherwise. Eventually, on his trip back to Nigeria from Kano International Airport to his place of abode, he was adopted. You know what that means? And they placed a ransom of 50 million. His father was able to raise the money to pay, and eventually they killed the man and took away with the money. So that is that for you. So when you don't want the truth, when you don't want to invest on the impoverished population of the North, you will definitely uh, be running helter-skelter. The place will not be conducive for you. It's just a matter of time. Yes, you might say, okay, uh, what will I have to do with the locals? But the time will come as they intercepted that man at the airport en route. His home country eventually was kidnapped and eventually was killed, and then that everything becomes the ransom was paid and the man was not spared. So the Lord should think on how to better the Lord using that mentality, deceptive and destructive mentality, that it is not time to set the record straight. It is not time for tax reform. It is not time, but it's time for impunity to reign. It is time for the cattle rearers and the Fulani militias to removing their cattle from one point to the other, destroying people's land, destroying people's crops, killing and adopting, marrying and raping people. It is time how we are taking us to the primitive age, taking us to the uh, primitive and insensible and irresponsible acts. So it is time. And you see how the conspiracy of silence is against the northern people. Needless to say, most of them are not concerned about what is happening because they felt perhaps it is protecting their political interests or trying to front their agendas or whatever, giving them opportunity to negotiate or bargain in their own interest. But unfortunately, that is paying off uh, badly or is rubbing off on them. And you cannot tell the extent of damage that have been done to the entire northern hemisphere or the northern part of the country. Let me not use hemisphere because we're not talking about uh, the, the geography of the world. We are just discussing about the northern Nigeria and their interest when it comes to issues that they consider a threat to their undue advantage against other regions of this country. It is quite laughable and very disturbing. Now, what is Nigeria ripe for? If Nigeria is not ripe for development and to engender or productivity and encourage every region, just as the North has comparative advantage, they have the expanse of land, they have the granules, of course, the arable lands are there, the cocoa, granite pyramids are there to speak for themselves, unlike this current dispensation that is focusing mainly on oil. When the derivative was the source of revenue or exchange was mainly on agrarian related, of course, productions. You see granite pyramids. The allocation was 50-50. The locals where the production is done return 50%, while the proceed, the leftover is being remitted to the federal quarters or federal treasury. But that is not the case because when they now saw that the attention had been shifted to, of course, oil that comes from the south, which they believe are conquered territory, they now have to change the goalpost. They have to change the instructions guiding the rule of the game, of course, at the middle of the game, and just because they knew that that would not be in their own interest. It's quite unfortunate, in as much as I don't believe strongly in the administration of Ahmed Bola Tinubu, but then most recent, most of his policies was intended, perhaps, well, to grant him some benefit of doubt, to strike some balance in the system and make sure that uh, every region is fairly treated, except for the eastern parts of the country that have been neglected for more than decades after the civil war. Of course, Nigeria have not shown any level of commitment in reconciliatory moves to reintegrate the the eastern part of the country to the Nigerian project. And that's why what we are seeing today is in prevalence. Of course, when you fail to address the nagging issues, you will be inviting anarchy. Perhaps it's a matter of time. Unfortunately, this anarchy are not coming from the war-ridden region of the eastern region, but now it's all over the entire Nigeria. Nowhere is safe. Even the north is receiving it more harder. Their regions are deserted, and the most uh, concentration of IDPs are higher there. Now you begin to ask who then is at war? Has the war ended? The war invariably has not ended because the North, who sponsored, they executed the war against the Biafrans, are still at war with themselves. This man is not in, of course, the Biafran engaging or trying to defend their own territorial integrity and eventually and was invaded by the Nigerian government. Today, Nigeria is at war with itself, and how far this war will go and how long, of course, is just a function of time. Nobody knows because Sheikh Gumi told us that even in 20 years, Boko Haram will not be defeated. Though any intention or anybody telling you that Boko Haram will be defeated is just making, of course, a mockery of himself. That Boko Haram has links with Al Qaeda, IS, and other deadly terrorist groups, been satisfied to be one of the deadliest, fourth deadliest terrorist group on earth. So you cannot just wish away, of course, their extinction. But then that is a battle for Nigeria to fix because this battle, according to some persons, is being created by the Nigerian political class who believes and they are power intoxicated. They believe they can get power at all costs. It doesn't matter if they have to destroy virtually everything left. for them to secure that their political interests. But unfortunately, that is backfiring, and they're careless because it does not impact on them directly on their children. If eventually the children of the politicians and relatives are being adopted on a daily basis, perhaps becoming part of the victims of this cruelty, they would have sit up and see how to address this. But unfortunately, the major receivers are the defenseless uh, poor Nigerians or the Northerners who eventually has nowhere to run to, only left at the mercy of whatever happens to them. It's quite very disturbing. But the North must understand that all these games and in three cases uh, could not continue because you can't continue to hold people back and thinking that you can move forward. All those deceptions, of course, they have been within the corridor for barely 40 years, whether it is military coup or a civilian president, more than 40 or close to 50 decades. And what have they achieved with that? So it's quite unfortunate they are now fighting a southerner who happens to be a Muslim ticket venture, but eventually they are seeing that their political interests, especially this Fulani uh, Kapas, a political class, do not see a future with Tinubu's continuing in power or their relevance or trying to control his actions and decisions. Very unfortunate. Somebody argued that Kwankwaso is not a Fulani man. Go and make research of his biography. You'll get to understand that Kwankwaso is a Fulani man. Erufai, Atiku, um, Bala Mohammed, the rest of them who are fronting out their agenda perhaps to dislodge Ahmed Bola Tinubu. It comes 2027, but Nigeria is almost on the path of coalition, and that eventually will bring out, of course, will give way to a very strong fusion of disintegration because you cannot continue to lord it over to others, believe that others have no option or decision to make when it comes to national issues. And they will do the ones just watching and keeping watch at what is playing out. This might be, of course, the last straw that will break the camel's back if they do not begin and continue to fight the tax reforms. They are indirectly telling the Southerners, they do the worst, and of course, the Biafrans are on their way already. Congratulations to them, regardless of whatever opinions or whatever may be happening. Uh, this impact has been made and is a clear indication that they have no, of course, intention of remaining in Nigeria. Their heart and their spirit, the soul, has been separated from the Nigerian entity and the project. Nobody wants to identify with that. Not even the West, who have threatened that, of course, regional government or Duduwa, as the case is, will be the only alternative. It should not continue to push hard to force other people to subjugation. They are ready, of course, for the fight. And this fight is fighting to finish the course. But whatever happens, I hope, and sometimes it's very good at such a crisis to set the record straight. And other people will be given the opportunity to decide. Of course, it is their inalienable right to freedom, and they cannot be, their freedom cannot be mortgaged or usurped by any vested interest or personality who want to continue the indirect subjugations and undue advantage of taking what belongs to others. Well, let's get to know what is your own take regarding this. Wishing you the best of this new year 2025, and will be an exciting and fruitful year for all of us as we continue to watch an intriguing and exciting events unfolding. Wishing you the best of the rest of the year. 2025. Again, chicos and the body host anchor. Bye for now. Until the next edition. Remain blessed.